You got a big turn.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order Region 6 Jacinto Regional Flood Planning Group meeting on June 8th, 2023. We'll do the initial item. We have our formal call to order, and we'll do our roll call.
Good morning, everyone. I'll start off with our voting members. Lisa Donovan, she can repeat after Ann. And check with me. Irvin Burden.
Here.
Paul Locke.
Here,
Tina Peterson.
difficult to hear.
Tina Peterson.
Here.
Tim Busha.
Here.
Steve Costello. Steve Costello. Gene Spitzler.
Here.
Matt Barrett.
Here.
Thomas Hoskier.
Here.
Aaliyah Vincent.
Present.
Todd Burke.
Present.
Brian Maxwell.
Co-stars here for Brian.
Good morning, Bob. Christina Quintero.
She went away.
Christina Quintero.
She-
Neil Peter.
Here.
That comes for our voting members. Staff, we got with your non-voting members. Hope Zubek. Hope Zubek or Daniel Price. Michelle Ellis. Michelle Ellis or Eric Wright. Kristen Lamprath.
Present.
Joel Clark. Joel Clark or alternate Ryan Cobb. Santiago Franco.
Here.
Megan Ingram.
Present, thank you.
Melinda Johnston. Melinda Johnston or alternate Tim Nyson. Steve Johnston is in here filling in for Justin Bauer. Steve
Right.
Johnston are present.
Yes.
Ely Alcorey. Tom Height. Mike Turco.
Present.
Lisa Mears. Sally Baca. Here. Good morning, Sally. Good morning. Okay, now moving on to our liaisons.
Fatima,
Yes.
this is Mary Ann Piacentini. I'm here from Elisa Donovan. I'm sorry if I missed her being called out.
Thanks for letting us know, Marianne. We did know that, you are filling in for Lisa Donovan. Steve Costello, are you present? Scott Harris. Liv Hasselhoff. Mark Vogler.
Present.
You and Brandon Wade. We'll call it time, please.
Thank you, Fatima. We'll move on to item number 3. Registered public comments. Do we have any registered public comments this morning? Okay. We'll move on to item number 4. Megan, available?
Thank you, Tim. Yes, I am here. And I actually have no updates today, so we can continue right along.
Well, welcome, and I didn't hear all of that, so did she have any other formal update? All right.
Oh, can y'all hear me okay?
I did. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll move on to item number 5, approval of meeting minutes for April 13th, 2023. They were included in your package. Assume everyone's had opportunity to review them. Are there any comments? Are you sure, Matt?
No comments.
All right, this
Check
is
that.
Aaliyah Vincent, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Aaliyah, second by Jean. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the meeting minute, approval of the meeting minutes for April 13th, 2023, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Move on to item number 6. Announcement of new alternate members and new non-voting members. I'm aware of no changes or additions at this time. We'll move on then to item number 7. Liaison reports pertaining to other regions, progress and status and other related entities. I heard Todd was on. Todd, anything you want to provide us with an update to the Trinity?
They're amending their plans right now, but nothing outside of what we're kind of doing. And just as an add, Glenn, the guy that's chairman of the Trinity, and Tim will be doing a presentation at the Water Board Association Conference in about 2 weeks about the state flood plan. I'm very appreciative of those guys doing their work.
Thank you, Todd. I believe Steve was not here. Was Liv on? All right. Lower Brazos region.
Nothing to report today for you.
All right. What about Region H? Anything moving on Region H relative to flood planning group? Not that I'm aware of. And then Sally's here today.
Yes, sir.
You care to share any insight on what's going on with Gulf?
Yeah, do you want to go to the podium right there? That'd be great. That way she'll be mic'd.
Podium.
Right there.
Everyone, it's good to see everyone in person. I'm Sally Baco. I am liaison for the Gulf Coast Protection District, and I come bearing good news. The HB 2416 was passed by the legislature, which creates a Gulf Coast Protection Trust Fund. This will be really essential for our long-term planning for non-federal share funding for the Gulf Coast Protection Storm Surge Protection System. So we're very excited about that. More importantly, the legislature included in the biennium budget $550 million for the Gulf Coast Protection District through the General Land Office. This money will be used in part for the non-federal share for the Orange County portion of the Galveston, the Sabine to Galveston Bay project that was authorized and advanced funded by Congress in 2018. But $200 million is going to be set aside in anticipation for the non-federal share for the Coastal Texas Study Storm Surge Protection System project. These two items are really going to be critical in our communications with Congress in requesting funding for the project. We have basically said the state legislature recognizes the statewide economic implications of this project, the importance of this project in terms of protecting supply chains not only in the state but in the nation, and that they're ready to sit at the table with a long-term designated trust fund and an initial non-federal share of $200 million. So we're hoping that messaging will help us leverage the essential federal dollars we need, because what's really critical here is the Gulf Coast Protection District will enter into a project partnership agreement once the federal dollars are made available. So we need to be able to use these two mechanisms passed by the legislature as leverage for getting that PPA signed so that we can get the project started. So we're all very excited about this. And while this is not directly related to GCPD, I will share with you also in the biennium budget, $625 million for the Flood Infrastructure Fund, which will obviously benefit projects identified in the state flood plan when that is presented to the legislature in September 2024. So From the flood perspective, we had some good things happen.
Thank you, Sally. We'll move on to item number 8. This is we've had a number of subcommittees that have met over time. And since some of those committees have not met again, there's been an inability to formally adopt the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. So this item 8 is first planning cycle committee meeting minutes closeout, update and discussion regarding finalizing previous committee meeting minutes for the record. I will turn to my vice chair, and one comment I think she can confirm for me is there's nothing formal in our bylaws that requires our meeting minutes to be closed out from any acting subcommittee. We know the executive committee does meet periodically, and so every time they meet, they close out the meeting from before. And so I believe we have a technical committee meeting and a public engagement committee meeting group that would have today outstanding non-approved meeting minutes. But there's not a formal reason to do it. And because I think the time we really started talking about this, we were kind of unclear about the second planning cycle. I can tell you, I sat in on the sponsors call. Fatima was on it yesterday. There is a second planning cycle. And so there'll be another opportunity to have a technical committee meeting and a public engagement committee meeting. So without having, the process would have to go through, you'd have to call those meetings to order just to adopt meeting minutes, but then you would have meeting minutes that you adopted meeting minutes. So unless someone in our voting membership has a strong desire to clean something up as we end the first cycle, I would say we let the process normally fold out. And in the future, when those meetings meet, even if it's a year down the road, they will reconcile the meeting minutes from that previous committee. Hopefully, we'll have at least one member of the committee who sat there before. And I open the table for discussion.
Well, this is Aaliyah. I'm happy to comment on that. So I think that was well stated by the chair, that there is not a requirement that the committee minutes be closed out within a planning cycle. And as we now know, we are moving on to the next planning cycle. And so certainly there will be opportunity for each of those committees to meet in fairly short order. I know the executive committee met yesterday and we approved our outstanding minutes from 2022. And so I think that no special action needs to be taken, and we can simply let those committees meet in the ordinary course and approve their minutes.
Any other? Gene?
I don't want to be the contrarian, but I will be. I agree with everything you said. But if I were a guy, and I am, who were to join a committee, and somebody's got to remember this stuff, and we could just put it to bed now. There's no problem with us approving them, I don't believe. And maybe there is, but I was assuming in other groups I have been in, we have taken it upon ourselves to approve meeting minutes of things that were years ago that have not reconvened, just because it does clean it up and it leaves it clean for the inheritors of that. So I'm not going to make a motion, but I'll just suggest that in 2 or 3 years, y'all think if this worked. And then if it didn't work, you might want to clean it up next time, because it does leave some stuff hanging, and this whole room could change and it might be difficult to remember it. That's just my personal view.
Well, I think that's a fair comment to make. In this case, because those committees did meet in 2022, they will be meeting in fairly short order. I don't think we have that same risk, but I think it's a good point to make, and let's watch it and see how it sits. And in particular, I would say if we have a committee that we know we're drawing to a close that will not be meeting again, we for sure need to close that out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to be the one who says, I told you so.
That's right.
Is there any mechanism if we get in that situation where they've been lingering, where they could be approved in this meeting to prevent the cyclical committee meeting minutes, or is there no way to do that?
Well, after sitting in on a conference call yesterday, the flood planning groups have a lot of power to manage our own affairs. Let me rephrase that.
Right.
We could, at a normal planning group meeting, call a session or a breakout session where we paused our session, had a session, and it kind of did it in that venue. You have all the public notice requirements that have to go in. And I will say another interesting tidbit from yesterday, the Water Development Board will be seeking to adjust the rules of the planning groups to reduce public notice periods, because the 14-day period is pretty onerous. And so they're going to be seeking, it's preliminary, it's nothing official, to reduce those announcements. And so it may be easier for us during the second planning cycle if we encountered something like this to manage. Any other comments for voting membership? Hearing none, no action on item 8, and we will move on to item number 9. Item number 9 is voting member terms for the second planning cycle. Drawings for 2- and 5-year terms to be held. With again, having the flexibility within our planning group to tackle this as we see fit. I have proposed and suggest the easiest way to do that, because we are in a hybrid setting. And per the bylaws, we're supposed to select terms of 2 and 5 years for the planning group members. As an odd number group, we have to have 8 2-year terms and 7 5-year terms. What I propose, instead of having people draw a 2 or a 5 out, that I have had Claudia prepare the name of each voting member group. So public interest, industries, utility districts, etc. And I and the vice chair will draw. I, as you can see, am a 5-year draw. Aaliyah is a 2-year draw. And we will draw alternate going through, with the only caveat being we have a unique opportunity in our group that we have 2 public members. So in the piece of paper, it says public 1 and public 2. With public 1 being Mr. Fissler's officially created position through the state board when it was created, with public 2 being Ms. Quintero's position that was created by the planning group itself. And so if we draw public 1 or public 2, the other one will automatically get the other term, so that those 2 positions are not on the same term. Do I have any objections or concerns from the voting membership? Figured it could be as transparent as we can make it.
Who figured all that out?
A lot of idle time driving back and forth.
This is the chair and the staff.
This is well thought through.
But I do concur, and one of the things that this does is that as we pull out each piece of paper, as indicated, it will be the category of voting membership. And so if, for example, it's the environmental category, it is assigned to that category, not the person. So as we have vacancies and transitions, that role will keep that term.
Should we hold our applause till the end?
Let's see what each person's draw is.
Vice Chair, would you draw first, please?
I will. Get 1. Okay. All right, the first draw for a 2-year term is the role of counties.
First draw for the 5-year term, electric generating utilities.
These kind of stick together. You have to be careful. Okay, second draw for a 2-year term is public number 1.
So public number 2 is automatically a 5. And when we find it, we'll set it to the side.
Exactly.
Next 5-year is river authorities.
The next 2-year term is coastal communities.
Next 5 years, upper watershed.
The next 2-year term is municipalities.
Next 5-year term, environmental interest.
The next 2-year term is industries.
Next 5-year term is water districts.
The next two-year term, actually, this one is public number 2, and we already assigned public number 2 the other position. So I'm going to
Draw
draw
again.
again for a two-year term. All right. The next two-year term is small business.
Next 5-year term is water utilities.
And that gives you a total of 7 now, right?
That would leave me with 7.
Okay. And
I think we did water utilities. It's twice.
hold
did?
on, wait a second. Wait.
We did. It's full.
It was electric.
We've got, hold
Water
on, we've got water utilities and water districts are different.
Yeah, there's
No
So-
different.
So keep that one.
Water utilities.
Okay,
That's
so
my 7.
currently we have 7 5-year terms drawn. Yes. And the next 2 are both going to be 2-year terms because per our bylaws, 8 of the 15 will be 2-year terms. All right, so flood districts will be a 2-year term. And agricultural interests will be a 2-year term. And that brings the drawing to a close.
So
Congratulations.
congratulations to all. And Claudia, to confirm, we have water utilities, electric generating utilities, river authorities, upper watershed, environmental interest, water districts, and public number 2 is 5-year terms.
Correct.
Okay, and for the 2-year terms, we have counties, public number 1, coastal communities, municipalities, industries, small business, flood districts, and agricultural interests.
For the voting membership that are here, would I get a motion to accept the drawing for the 2 and 5-year terms for our voting membership?
I'll make the motion.
Tina made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Multiple seconds. Did you get one, Claudia? Connie? All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of acceptance of the 2 and 5-year terms for our voting membership indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Of course.
Item number 10 is update discussion and possible action of the solicitation process for the environmental interest voting member representative vacancy. And I will turn this over to the Vice Chair as I was absent from the meeting yesterday.
All right, thank you very much. So as the membership is aware, there is currently a vacancy in the environmental interest voting member category. Per our process, a solicitation for that position did go out to the public. We had a few responses. We had an opportunity yesterday with the executive committee to meet with candidates who were interested in the role. And as has been the case previously, we've really been fortunate to have just really great quality candidates who really have great expertise. And it is really wonderful to see the continued interest in individuals and serving in these roles. So I'm happy to report that the executive committee is unanimously recommending the appointment of Dr. Hanadi Rafai to the environmental interests category. Dr. Rafai is on the line by video conference. I wanted to give a little bit of an explanation of her qualifications. And then if the members have any comments or questions, then we can take time for that. So Dr. Rafai is a professor of civil and environmental engineering at the University of Houston. She has a very long CV, so I'm just going to hit a few highlights. She has been involved in flood-related issues for more than 3 decades. She has studied and modeled almost all of the streams and natural water systems in the San Jacinto region for flooding and hurricanes and environmental quality. She has additionally conducted numerous field sampling events within the region over the past 25 years. Dr. Rafai is presently undertaking studies related to flood risk and community perceptions of their flood risk. She's very involved with many organizations, has leadership roles in many, but just a few things that she is involved with. She participates with the Galveston Bay Council since 2007. She represents University of Houston in the Consortium of Universities for Advancement of Hydrologic Science. She represents the College of Engineering and the American Society for Engineering Education. She's the Director for Hurricane Resilience Research Institute and the U of H Director of Severe Storm Prediction, Education, and Evacuation for Disasters. She directs the Environmental Engineering Program at University of Houston, and she represents the University of Houston in the Texas Association of Environmental Professionals. We found her to be eminently qualified, very enthusiastic about participating and taking the time to do so, and we feel very comfortable making this recommendation. I did want to ask the other members who serve on the executive committee who were able to attend if you have any additional comments.
Sure, just echoing what Leah said, two good candidates. Dr. Rafai, very well qualified. She mentioned over 30 years experience, and I believe all that experience has been in the Houston area. So not only relevant experience, but understands this area and its needs. Great candidate and happy to recommend her.
I think Matt and Leah, you covered the topic well. I support.
I agree. Well, thank you to the executive committee. We have the doctor on, but before I let her speak, any other discussion or thoughts, or do I have a motion?
I'll move that she be accepted as the new member.
Second.
Well, great, wonderful. I have a motion and a second for the acceptance and appointment of Dr. Honda Rafai as the environmental interest voting member. Any other discussion? None? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Well, congratulations, Dr. Rafai. If you want to say a word or two, please do so. Thank you. Welcome to the club.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate the confidence that everyone has in my ability to serve in this really important role. I look forward to working with all of you and making a meaningful contribution to the process. Thanks again, and good to see everyone.
Thank you. And congratulations, you, as you may have heard, you were on a 5-year term.
I did hear that. Thank you.
All right, we will move on to item number 11. Well, Corey, it is time for you guys. So item 11 is presentation update from the technical consultant on the development of the regional flood plan, discussion and possible action for the RFPG as it pertains to adoption of the amended regional flood plan due to the Texas Water Development Board on July 14th, 2023, and authorization to submit the plan and required materials to the Texas Water Development Board contingent upon incorporation of any necessary and non-substantive comments or changes. So Corey and Maggie, welcome this morning, and you're up.
Y'all hear us? Mic check.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank y'all. All right. I'll very quickly turn it over to Maggie here, but we're going to keep it short and hopefully very, very sweet today. So congratulations to everyone on getting to this point. We're going to give a little update on what we've been up to and then work towards an action on the planning group's behalf later in the presentation. So, Maggie.
All right. Can everybody hear me? I'll try to project. So yeah, as Corey mentioned, we'll speak to some updates since the April Regional Flood Planning Group meeting. We'll speak to the revised regional flood planning materials that were provided for regional flood planning group review and posted on the website. And we'll be seeking a motion from the group later on in the presentation. And then we'll speak to some upcoming schedule milestones beyond submittal of the amended regional flood plan. So updates since the group last convened in April. Following recommendation of new FMEs, FMSs, and FMPs within the regional flood plan, we sent out financing surveys to those new sponsors to get a better understanding of the funding gap to actually implementing those studies and projects that are now recommended within the plan. So identifying what percentage of the total cost sponsors intended to fund themselves versus what financial assistance from the state or from state and federal sources may be necessary. And so those were sent out and we received responses as of May 19th. Also, since the April RFPG meeting, we've had or received some additional submittals of FMXs for consideration by the Regional Flood Planning Group. After coordination with the chair and vice chair, it was determined that these submittals would be documented within the Regional Flood Plan as public comments to earmark them as the group moves towards the second cycle. So those are already, that's data that we're still continuing to collect and document within the plan, although there was not sufficient time to incorporate, consider, and recommend those in the amended plan due in July at this time. But those are included in the materials that are posted on the website currently.
Yeah, and I'll add something, we'll talk a little bit later in this meeting about, potential meeting topics for subsequent meetings here. All of the regional flood plans are going to the Water Development Board for their review and compiling into the state flood plan. That's going to be finalized in September of 2024. And so in the interim, we expect additional guidance from the Texas Water Development Board as it pertains to the amendment process. So we talk about these additional FMXs that have been documented here. As we move forward, we'll have some more clarity on what that amendment process looks like post the first amended regional flood plan here. So as we have that and the Water Development Board has that, we'll report out on that.
All right, and then the final update we wanted to provide is that the Water Development Board has issued additional submittal guidance for the amended regional flood plan, and there were some new requirements included in that submittal guidance. Those have been incorporated in the meeting materials that were posted on the website as of June 1st. Some of those include standardizing documentation of no negative impact by projects across the state. So I think every region had been documenting that probably in separate ways or formatted differently. And so the Water Development Board made an effort to standardize that across the state, as well as request clear documentation of all the changes since the final plan. And another update that was great for us to hear is that we'll only need to submit one hard copy of volume 1, not multiple hard copies of the entire plan. We'll save some trees. So that was good to see. So as a brief overview of the materials that have been provided for Regional Flood Planning Group review, the scope of the amendment to this plan did not require a complete overhaul of the regional flood plans. There are several chapters that were not changed as a function of the effort under this amended plan. So in order to help focus Regional Flood Planning Group review on May 24th, we distributed Word versions of each of the regional flood planning chapters with track changes on, so that y'all could very clearly see the changes that were made to each of these documents and focus the review. We also provided all of the updated appendices within volume 2. So not all of them, but the ones that were revised as part of this amended plan, as well as an index of changes. So a table that noted which sections of which chapters were revised and what those revisions consisted of. Oh, thanks. So following distributing that kind of more focused draft materials, we did compile and format the actual volumes of the regional flood plan. And that's what's posted on the website today and was posted on June 1st as meeting materials for this meeting. So that's inclusive of PDFs of volume 1 with all chapters formatted, as well as volume 2, including all appendices, as well as an index of changes. And the chapters and sections of the plan that largely changed are listed here or summarized here on the slide. So the executive summary, chapter 2, chapter 4, chapter 5, 6, 9, and 10. And those were all largely to make revisions and updates based on the new number of recommended FMEs, FMSs, and FMPs within the regional flood plan. So the regional flood plan, or moving forward, the intended duration of this planning cycle is 5 years. This first cycle was very abbreviated, and that's been a common discussion topic throughout the course of this project. As we proceeded with this project from the onset, it was identified that there were sponsors and communities who were still finding out about the regional flood planning process for the first time and who did not have the data to meet the qualifications of an FMP that were set by the Water Development Board. And so the Water Development Board heard that feedback from regional flood planning groups and that concern and allocated additional funds and, more importantly, additional time to amend the regional flood plans specifically to go back and engage with sponsors, collect additional data on their study and project needs, and incorporate that in the plan. And so in the San Jacinto region, what that's meant is there's been a significant increase in the number of FMEs that are now recommended in the plan, but more importantly, or more significantly, we've doubled the number of FMPs that are recommended in the plan. So that significantly expands the funding eligibility of communities within the region, and I think demonstrates a return on investment from the Water Development Board for allocating that additional 6 months, that additional funding to be able to go back to sponsors and collect additional data. As part of that, we've identified a $24.8 billion funding need. So that's not the total cost of all actions recommended in the plan. That's the gap between what sponsors have said that they're prepared or able to put forward themselves and pay for themselves versus what additional state and federal funding assistance is needed. So moving forward, there are several outstanding non-substantive changes that will still be made to, sorry, there's a lot of beeping, that will still be made to volumes of the regional flood plan, including coordinating with adjacent regions on cross-regional FMXs. So some regional flood planning groups are on a different timeline than the San Jacinto. They're still in the process of recommending FMXs within their region. And so as they do so, we'll make sure that there's no duplication. It would not consist of a substantive change. Everything recommended in the plan would still be recommended in the plan. There may just be some adjustment or prorating of cost based on the fact that it's recommended in both regions. Any changes that are necessary to comply with Water Development Board submittal guidance. Changes may be necessary to enhance accessibility of the PDF documents. So there may be some minor changes to formatting to be able to allow the document to be fully tagged. That's kind of separate requirements. And then finally, we received some non-substantive comments from regional flood planning group members. Thank you to Matt and Neil for providing those. And we'll be sure to incorporate those ahead of the July 14th submittal. So if regional flood planning group members don't have any other questions about those non-substantive changes that are outstanding, we would like to seek a motion from the regional flood planning group at this time to adopt the amended plan.
Question,
Yeah.
So first of all, thank y'all for doing the track changes, and the way y'all did it was awesome. That was much better than just getting a brand new document. We had to figure out where the changes were, so thank you. There were a couple lingering things I saw that I think are probably fall into the non-substantive bucket. I'll just give some examples to make sure everybody agrees they would fall in that. You know, there's, for example, one table where you have an existing conditions and then a after project conditions, and then there's a calculation of the difference between the two. At least one item didn't calculate quite right. I just wanted to bring that to y'all's attention. I can send that to y'all if the group's okay with that. Another place just to make sure, maybe there's a table that's going to be updated, making sure the associated text that's in that section gets updated as well. There's another set of tables where projects are grouped in structural or non-structural, and it's not quite consistent between two different chapters of the report. So it's just a consistency thing to look into. And then another, just a name of a project to make sure we get consistent in there or study. So I think those will probably all be non-substantive. I can work with them on that. That's, if the group's okay with that. One I had that is probably still not substantive. It's a language clarification thing, and I'm gonna throw out a section number. I know not everybody's got their, turn to your hymnal page, but, section 5D1, it talks about BCRs. And it used to say non-structural FMPs that improve regulations and permit requirements that did not have a previously calculated BCR from reports or studies have been assigned to BCR 5. So if it didn't have a BCR, you gave it a 5. That made sense. But y'all struck that part about did not have a previously calculated BCR. So it basically just says non-structural FMPs are automatically given a 5. That didn't quite make sense if it already had a BCR from another report. So that was kind of the more substantive question I had.
I think for that instance, I don't think they're for non-structural FMPs to update criteria manuals. I don't think we had any instances where there was a separate
Okay.
BCR. And so we've assigned that 5 based on the cited report. That's
You were
noted
just-
in the report.
You were just simplifying the language because it wasn't relevant, because there were none that had a BCR, is what you're saying.
Yes,
Okay,
it was a
got
minor change.
Okay. So I can work with them on those other things if the group's okay with that, non-substantive cleanup things.
I'm perfectly fine with that. Anyone else have a concern? One or 2 points I have, Corey, sitting in on the the sponsor call yesterday. So what we are actually going to submit is really the whole new package, except not as many copies. And it's predominantly digital, but it's the new plan and it's called the amended plan. It's not just, you're not sending up there pieces of a plan, you're sending up a whole new package.
Correct. And, the board has already been working on the first final regional flood plans that have been submitted to them. And so they have quite a charge in compiling all of these regional flood plans into a state flood plan. It's not just stapling them all together. There's a good amount of work that goes into it. And so as a part of our submittal, we're also pointing them to the changes that have occurred. And so there's an index of all changes that have occurred. I think it was not their intent to have a wholesale update to the regional flood plan. So tasks 1 through 10, there's changes where it's necessary, but I think they're expecting that, a lot of that is the same. And so we're trying to make it easier by pointing them to the specific areas that have changed in the amended plan. But it will be a full submittal of the entire updated plan. So.
Right. That's what I heard yesterday. And then my other understanding is on July 25th, that the state flood plan is supposed to go to the Water Development Board meeting. And I don't know if Megan is on, she may be able to add to that. So what's happening on the July 25th Water Development Board meeting, Megan?
That's the meeting where we'll be presenting final regional flood plans, the final plans to the board.
Okay, that's the presentation of the final plan to the board.
That's right. So each of the planners will be presenting their region's plan one by one, each of the 15 to the board, the final plans.
All right. Thank you. That's all the comments I had. Any other questions from the voting membership? It appears that Maggie has prepared a motion. As such, it appears that the motion states, the San Jacinto Regional Flood Planning Group adopts the amended 2023 Region 6 Flood Plan and authorizes the technical consultant to submit the plan and required materials to TWDB contingent upon incorporation of any necessary and non-substantive comments or changes. Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right. Gene and Neil had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the adoption of the amended 2023 Region 6 flood plan indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Corey and Maggie and your team.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll move on to item number 12. Presentation update from the technical consultant on ongoing outreach activities, discussion and possible action from RFPG as pertains to ongoing efforts. Oh, no.
And then we'll move, yeah.
Seamlessly to number 12, okay.
And this,
My apologies.
this kind of, it touches on that agenda item, it bleeds into it, so perfect
Continue,
segue.
Maggie.
Moving forward, now that the group has officially adopted the amended regional flood plan, we'll move forward with updating and reflecting that on the story map on the website. So updating all of the numbers in the story map to make sure that those are all reflective of the latest and greatest. We'll also be updating and revamping our technical documents page and the e-reader that's embedded within that page so that it's real easy for folks to scroll through volume 1. They don't have to download an entire separate PDF. So we'll be making those updates on the website following this meeting.
If y'all say y'all have not seen the story map yet, I'll encourage y'all to check that out. We'll be making those updates, but if you're looking to share what y'all have accomplished as a part of this regional flood planning effort, the story map is a good way to do that. It's immersive, it's visual, it pulls the numbers and kind of the high points out of the flood plan. So as you look for opportunities to share this, your broader ideas and decisions, that's a good mechanism to be able to do this.
All right, so upcoming schedule milestones in the June and July timeframe, the group is adopting the amended plan, which we've just done today, and we'll be moving forward with addressing non-substantive comments and submitting to the Water Development Board by July 14th, which is the deadline. In August, the group will move forward with no longer filling the environmental interest voting member. We were able to do that in this meeting, but should there be any other vacancies, that would be an opportunity to fill those, as well as towards selecting a sponsor for the second cycle regional fund. Following August, looking towards the end of the year, the Water Development Board is going to be working furiously to update changes to second cycle rules. Process for that second cycle. Present second cycle funding allocations to the state to their board.
Excuse me, it's a bit difficult to hear.
That's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit, lean in.
Are y'all able to hear online?
No.
No, that was me.
I'm sitting over here.
Come sit over here. Yeah.
It appears that the mics at the dais are working, but the other mics are not, so.
Sorry, y'all.
Batteries will get you every time. Yeah, what are you gonna do?
Okay. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, my voice isn't more loud. What we were mentioning was that towards the end of the year, the Water Development Board will be presenting a lot of information to their board about the second cycle of regional flood planning. That includes changes to the formal rules that will govern the second cycle process, as well as the funding allocation for the 15 regions, flood planning regions across the state. So what the budget will be for second cycle regional flood planning. And following that, the Water Development Board and the local sponsor will aim to execute their contract by the end of the year.
Thank you. Thank you. Kind of want to add to that. So as we get later in the meeting, we'll be talking a little bit about our next meetings and some of the tasks that we'll have for that. And the information Maggie just shared will be very relevant to that. So Maggie, does this complete item number 11?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Item number 12, presentation and update from the technical consultant on the ongoing outreach activities, discussion, and possible action from the RFPG as pertains to ongoing efforts. Do we have anything formal on item number 12? Corey?
So I think most of it was just kind of covered and really getting some of those online materials updated and things available. So that all of the contents of the plan. Media will continue the presentation and meet with individuals who are interested in participating in the same information that we give. Where we're at in the process right now and where we're at going. So, as I mentioned, if we have additional guidance on what that amendment process looks like, I'm sure to communicate that out.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to item number 13. Approval and certification of administrative expenses incurred by the project sponsor for the development of the regional flood plan. I reviewed the expense profile that they gone through from 311 to 55. It's consistent with the level of effort the sponsor's been providing, and with our every other month meeting, it's appropriate value. And I have be looking for a motion and a second to approve expenses.
So moved. This is Aaliyah.
I'll second. This is Tina.
I have a motion and a second to approve administrative expenses for our plan sponsor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Presentation of the 2023 planning group key dates and deadlines. As we went through the slide that Maggie had, our amended plan is due by mid-July to the state board. I think our plan will be one of the plans then adopted at the meeting in July, late July. And that as we look forward, we're trying to, again, maximize our the time that when we do meet to get as much covered as we can. And so one of the items that is, you may have seen in her slide, was the certification confirmation of a plan sponsor. And Paris County has been very supportive of us in this infancy year as we've gone through the last 2.5 years of the hybrid meetings and trying to manage hybrid meetings, which you would think in this day of age would be simple, Simon, but it's not. It is still a complex issue, and appreciate the staff and their hard efforts. We've had some turnover in our voting membership, and have issued RFQs and pushed those out, made sure people were aware of them. So, I mean, we've been very supportive of that. And from what I read from the schedule is we would like to have a plan sponsor confirmed by September 2024. And what I would seek permission from this group is I would like to compose a letter to Judge Hidalgo seeking their support and continuing to be our sponsor, and reach out to Dr. Rahman by call, just to touch base with him, and then issue a letter from this group to Judge Hidalgo asking that they continue to be our plan sponsor. Any objections from the floor? Then I will plan to do that. The next thing that'll happen is we would then hopefully, I don't know if they'll have to have a court action or not, but hopefully we'll have a confirmation from them by September. We would then advise Texas Water Development Board. We have confirming our plan sponsor. And really the two activities that'll probably then be going on is, one, for the plan sponsor is then being prepared to issue an RFQ for a technical consultant, which is by what I was told yesterday is a requirement that a technical consultant RFQ be issued for the next planning cycle. And by that time, I would also expect we'll get a lot more information about how the next planning cycle will be ongoing. I do want to confirm what Corey indicated about the adoption of the plan in September 24. There will be no amendment to that state flood plan before then. After that, in the interim between 2024 and the adoption of the next 5-year cycle, the state will plan to do some form of update very similar to how Region H, or not how Region H, but how the water plan, state water plan's done. And I think at that time, we can have a discussion as a regional group of how we want to approach the amendment process, because we can amend our plan. But until you're in the state plan, you're not in the potential funding regime. So there's going to be a finite amount of resources available, but I think that's something we can have a discussion on how we want to operate over the next planning cycle, and how we entertain new submissions, and how we try to capitalize on success of the funds in the fifth and success of the state flood plan on incorporating additional recipients, additional sponsors into it. So I'll put on that list for things to discuss later. We are contemplating meeting in August, meeting in October, and meeting in December. And we have been striving to find a more central location. I'm kind of bleeding into number 15, but I'm going to take some latitude. Talking with Fatima and Claudia, the plan sponsor does have an alternate location for us at our next meeting. I believe November or October, we have ability to go to United Way, starting in October. So if this group is amenable to meet in August, I would suggest we just meet here one more time and not create a change and then another change as we try to transition to the United Way. So Fatima, we talked to Mike. Would y'all please reach out and confirm that we can have access for our meetings, normal meeting time in August here at Subsidence District? All right. Well, great.
Tim, I just have a quick comment.
Yes.
You'll probably already know this, but it is important. Please do plan to have a formal vote in August to select the planning group sponsor after the good work that you do leading up to that.
So on August, we'll do that. It'll be on our agenda.
Okay, great.
That's our plan. Sponsor says yes. So we just kind of covered item 15, which is an update and discussion pertaining to in-person RFPG meeting locations. So then for item 16, consider agenda items for the next meeting. Besides our standing items for reports, meeting minutes, alternate members, new voting members, and the technical consultant presentations, I would like to add action on the discussion and possible action on the flood planning group sponsor. We'll probably have some expenses to certify, because I believe there is a deadline for our sponsor to submit expenses, and so we want to make sure we're keeping up with those so they don't get boxed in. And then, Gene, at some point in time, you're going to let me know what you want to do in 2024.
Yes, sir.
That's great. So we'll look forward to your continued service for the time being.
Yes, sir.
Any other agenda items, Corey, or sponsor that we at this point would need to have on?
Nothing else from our end. Just want to again reiterate huge thanks to all of the planning group members and those that you work with, and for your outreach and driving as much additional content to the plan as possible, and providing the framework for us to maximize the Water Development Board's additional funding and timeline. So just again, on behalf of our team, thank y'all for all of the efforts that y'all. It's been fast and furious for y'all, so we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I think there'll be a lot more known by our planning group and by members across the state of other planning groups as Texas Water Development Board in July and August kind of starts looking forward and unveiling how it's going to move. We're still in a special session. They're still trying to determine a budget and property tax relief, so never know, the fifth may get a little bigger. We can hope. But yeah, Sally stole my thunder. I was going to say the whole 625 deal, which is outstanding considering the Water Development Board asked for $350 million. So that's outstanding. We also would anticipate there'll be some language or some direction from Water Development Board on some, how those dollars are going to be presented, all, grant money versus just a loan versus whatever, and how, in talking to the other planning groups, it's, there's going to have to be a mechanism to program that there's not a, urban driven based on scoring and benefit costs, that there's a spread of the dollars across our state so that we continue to have statewide support for the regional flood plan. So it'll be interesting over the next few months as that kind of unveils itself. All right, item number 17, public comments. Are there any additional public comments that we've been noticed of? All right, no hands. Well, then on item 18, before I adjourn, I just want to again thank our technical consultant for the hard work in trying to get here, our plan sponsor for their continued support, the Houston area Galveston Subsidence District for allowing us to meet in this room, and the support of their technical staff, and all the voting members who decided to make it down here today to Friendswood. Thank you for your time. And I will call the meeting adjourned at, is 10 exactly?
Yeah.
10 a.m.
What are you doing this week?
I think that's good.